Guys, intro time.
Wait, which intro?
The wisdom check.
Oh, good.
Wait, no. I thought we were keeping the old intro. What's wrong with the old one? People like that one.
It was too long.
Yeah.
Too many fucking gifs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But can we keep the part where I yell more?
No.
But it's the intro to end all intros.
I got like what? 2 lines last time?
Do you want more lines, Tim?
Well, no, not really.
In a world without answers.
Yeah.
Wait, you want to start with that?
Here we go. Exactly like last time.
Wait, okay, so we're doing the exact same way? Let's start with Smoky Bar.
No. It's a new season. We have to have a new intro.
More.
Not sure why we thought this would go any differently.
Oh, well. Welcome, everyone, to the Wisdom Check, where Jeff and Dustin welcome a guest every week to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Welcome.
This is ridiculous. I'm starting the stream now.
Wait, where's my die at? Well, we can't start until I botch, and it's not an intro unless I botch it.
You're on.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Wisdom Check.
What's up?
Tonight you will see it's a little different format than usual. I am as always Jeff, but on the other side you don't see a Dustin. And that's because Dustin is doing some work tonight. He is going to be taking care of business for the family. So one of our good buddies here, Cam, has decided to come in and help me out, keep me company tonight. And so Cameron, you may know from his show, Bardic Knowledge, that's here on Tuesday nights. And we thought it would be great to bring him in since he hasn't had a chance to sit in the hot seat over here. Unlike, Tim has done it and Levi's done it. We got to get Clint on here as well. But we figured it was time to get Cam on board and see what he was all about. So, Cam, welcome to the show.
I really know you wanted to do this by yourself. I really know you wanted to just sit here and talk to a camera without anybody else. I'm sure you would have
it's been my dream. All my life I've been waiting to just sit and talk to a blank screen. Would have been great.
I'm just crashing the party, that's all.
Well, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
No problem.
So we were going to talk a little bit later on about music, since that's your big focus on the channel. We're also going to be probably talking about some other things that you're really into. In particular, we were talking about fitness, and I was thinking about ways of tying it into gamification. Applying what happens in the gaming world to these sorts of things that are typically not seen as in the gaming world. So we'll kind of get to that eventually, but I would actually like to do the usual questions that we usually have. So here we go. Are you ready, Cameron?
All right, I'm ready.
Long-time listener, it's your time.
Yeah, first-time caller. That's right.
As per usual, we like to get the backstory and figure out, how you got into the hobby, what it was that your first games looked like, and what drew you in and what keeps you in the game world.
Well, very first game I was ever in was your game, believe it or not. It was what was it? It was White Wolf. It was Vampire Dark Ages.
That's right.
And all of our TT2KB mutual friend Barry, who I feel like someday we should get him on here for something.
Oh, that'd be great.
He I must have been a junior in high school, something like that. He was a year behind me. And he was like, hey, I've been playing this game with some guys you already know, and I think you should play. And I'm like, cool, what are we playing? And he's like, it's called Vampire, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great. What's the point? Like, what do we do? How do you win? He's like, well, you don't win. It's the same story everybody hears. Like, the first time you play a role-playing game, how do you win? Well, you don't win. That's not how it works.
Crazy.
And so, because we were filling out the thing, and on the old, White Wolf character sheets, there was always, a little spot for, like, a couple of word blurb of concept. Like, what is this character about, And I didn't know. Literally, I'd never played a role-playing game in my life, didn't know what I was doing, and my concept was, don't die. That was my concept. So I did not die, thankfully, so concept achieved. But we played that game for a really long time. We played that game for probably a couple of years, I would think. Either that or we didn't play it for very long. We just played it so often that it seemed like a couple of years.
I think it was 1 year, and we played it like 4 or 5 times a week.
I know, I don't even
multiple
know how
times
we
in the
did
same day.
Oh, high school. The time you have in high school. Yeah, but that was my first game, my first foray into it, and then that kind of led to the first Dungeons and Dragons game, which is what we play primarily now, was Dustin's game that we played not much longer after, and we always played at the Pancake household.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, again, we always reference Dave being there for all of it for us. He was hosting many times, whether he knew it or not, and played a Dustin's 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons game. So that was kind of my foray into the Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, it was the first time anybody had played that, but I know a lot of you guys had played like 2nd edition and stuff like that, which I had not, and I to this day do not understand well. Like, throw in Thaco, I got no idea what's happening. I'm like, just tell me what to roll and how to roll it. But yeah, that's pretty much it, and then kind of stuck with it. There's a lot of people that I kind of feel like there's 2 types of people that are gamers, and
Okay.
well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to game, but
I'm sitting
there's
here.
2 categories.
Let's hit
There's
those
2 categories. One is people that game all the time for game's sake, and they play with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the opposite camp, where I'm probably not the person that's just going to show up at your local game shop and play a game with people I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but I will be there for every game with the group that I game with. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I guess I'm the same way with friends. I'm like tight-knit with friends, you know? I don't have like 1,000 people I call friends. So I definitely fall firmly into that category of, you know, smaller group of people, or smaller social group of people, I guess I should say, for gaming. So
Yeah, and I think it's pretty common in our group as a whole. Like, I think most of us, maybe exception being Levi or Dustin maybe, but even there I think we as a group are kind of in that kind of like smaller social circles.
That's true, but I would say, I mean, yourself, Levi, and Dustin all had pretty big runs in the Larp community, which
We did.
You know, I mean, you're talking about anywhere from 20 to 50 people, you know, social circle at once. So that is, I mean, I went a couple times. It just wasn't my bag. But yeah, I would say that's kind of where I see that, you know, like I haven't gamed with more than 10 to 15 people total. You know, like my gaming circle is really small, you know, as opposed to some people, again, that there's no right or wrong way to do it, but that's just the way I always have. So yeah.
Yeah, so Cam has been a complete product of our gaming table then. So
It's
no other
true.
outside
It's
influences
true.
getting in there. Yeah, so it's
my
pretty
poor
interesting.
role playing, my poor gaming is all your guys' fault. So
It's
anytime
certainly-
anything bad happens, you can only blame yourself.
It all goes back to that first game where I was like, "Don't die." Gangrel
Don't die.
name after your friend in high school. Cool.
Yep, it's true, because that was the concept. Don't die. Survive.
You're a gangrel who likes the outdoors. Got it. Let's do this.
Boom. Easy. Could not be more trope, like anything ever. Like, it was the exactly what it says. Yep.
Right on the tin. Yeah, so it's interesting though. Like we have obviously gamed together for a crazily long time, and one of the things that we know is you're always a player, and we haven't got you behind the DM screen or GM
I did
screen.
it once. I did it once
time.
for like a handful of games. Thinking back on it, I was horribly unprepared.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all? Horribly unprepared, and additionally, he's gonna love it. His head's gonna get huge. But Levi has been such a good DM for so long that you get some of that imposter syndrome, you know, flying in there. So, yeah. So, I mean, I feel like I will go back and do it again sometime. But
Good.
I think, again, we played a game called Cadwallon, which honestly I fell in love with the art and the weirdness of the game. And it just turned out that we just didn't play a great, I didn't run a great game, we didn't play a great game.
Well,
and so it only
let's
lasted
be real
so
about
long.
what happened. You're taking a lot of blame for something I don't think that you should be taking blame for. So Cadwallon, for those of you who don't know about this game, I believe is a French game that wasn't properly translated, didn't include all of the data that you needed. All the rules did not reference things in the book. For instance, there were fairies apparently that you got as one of the characters. There's no fairies listed in the book anywhere. No stats, listed, nothing. It was a very strange, interesting style, but we were all new to a game that none of us knew, that wasn't written in English, that also wasn't a complete game. So
again, I will take the blame on that one. I picked a game that we didn't know how to play, and I was a newbie DM, so it was like it was meant for disaster, but it was a good experience. And I think if I do something again in the future, which I'm pretty sure I will, I'll still go outside of like Dungeons and Dragons. Though I like Dungeons and Dragons. Shadowrun, I've thought about Shadowrun. I do want to do something cyberpunky. So we'll see if it ends up being Shadowrun. I've actually looked at a couple of different. I can't remember any of the names right now. I have a bunch of bookmarks saved, but there's a few different systems out there, and there's some that are to come that I think could be interesting.
Nice.
So Cyberpunk Red will come out. There's another one I was looking at too. Again, I can't remember the name, but yeah. So you never know. Someday.
So why is it you're reaching in that dimension? Not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm actually pretty excited about it. But
well, we do a lot of fantasy. I like fantasy. I think we do fantasy pretty well. I don't know. I've always kind of really dug that cyberpunk or dystopian future setting, like for movies or whatever. It's always intrigued me, and I think playing in a world like that would be interesting. And playing in fantasy settings so often, we never deal with vehicles. Really, I mean, we never deal with technology. We never deal with, firearms, stuff like that. So it's just kind of a different thing. Not necessarily better or worse, just something we don't do a lot of. So I figure I already like the genre, and it's something different. And I think I will do. I think if we were to do this, we'll do a little bit more of a buffer on. Let's figure out how the game works first before we play the game, and then when we play the game, we can tell a story instead of be like, "What is this rule? Fairies? Where are they? Page what?" Yeah. So I think a lot of lessons were learned, and I think it would do something like that if I did that in the future. So
yeah, I think that style of game also kind of lends itself to a different set of demands for a person running the game. Like in a fantasy game, there's certain tropes you can lean into that we're all pretty familiar with. There's a lot of kind of typical encounters you can use. There's typical structures for the stories, that kind of stuff. And I think for most of the guys in our group, we're all into fantasy novels and that kind of stuff. So all that stuff kind of comes pre-packaged. We know what to expect. Whereas I think with the cyberpunk, some of us are into cyberpunk and sci-fi as just a genre in general, but I think some of the rest of us aren't. And so I think those are going to be some interesting challenges to kind of overcome.
Right.
To make these things make sense to everyone at the table. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, and I think, again, if we did do something like Shadowrun, for example, because Shadowrun almost toes the line a little bit, because you have orcs and elves and whatever, and you can be a entirely melee character and be effective. I feel like that, if you think about movies or anime or whatever you've seen that is cyberpunk, everybody's shooting a gun, and every once in a while you'll see a character I'm pure melee in a all gun world, and I still kick ass, but it's not that often. But I think Shadowrun, at least again, I'm not super deep into Shadowrun yet. I don't know it really well, but it seems like it is a perfectly viable way to do it. And so you can be if you wanted to be okay, this guy has Don Quixote syndrome where he thinks he's bigger than he is, and he thinks he's a knight in shining armor, but he wants to play in Shadowrun, he could totally do that. You know, like, you could play that character, and you could just say, my character doesn't do anything with technology. Yeah, technology might happen to him, but you don't have to. So maybe that'll bridge the gap. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
We got a redeemed wisdom check question. I'm going to challenge you to read it, since that's a running gag we have
I
around
have
here.
to find it first. Here we go.
There's two of them. Both of them from the
There's
same
two
person.
of them.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Well, the first one's just more of a comment about promising game publicly. Yeah, he's just commenting. He's just saying it out loud.
It's okay. Say it out loud. He redeemed it.
Try to put it in history. He says, Cam's promising a Shadowrun game. I did not promise a Shadowrun game. However, it's quite possible that it could happen someday. I've always had a story that I kind of tooled around in my head for a long time. Gosh, it's been more than a decade.
We've talked about it for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe I could work that story in. Just have to work it into system. And the hardest part, I think, is when you come up with a story is, I've got this really cool story I want to tell, but I want it to be a role-playing game. I don't want it to be a railroad session, So it's almost like figure out how to tell that story while giving the players options to opt in or opt out and do something else. So
yeah, I think the trick is you got to look at your story from the perspective of you playing your own game, not knowing what's happening, and it's not always easy to do, especially since the other players at the table play probably in a different way than you would. So it's like there's like a little bit of a nuance and art there. But what I'm finding is the hardest part actually is starting. Just
of course,
committing and doing it.
Just like anything. Anything.
That's been the issue. Like, I know with me running, the Pathfinder second hit game, I wanted to do it, but I drug my feet on it.
Sure. We all do.
So, it's...
How long did it take to start Bardic Knowledge? A little while. Took a little while. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it takes time to kind of get going, get going, and then once you start, it's really easy to maintain momentum. And I think that's the thing, we've talked about this on the channel a lot, is that when you're a DM, you have to let yourself have the opportunity to make mistakes, and you have to let yourself have a chance to fail with style, and like succeed down the road. Yeah. And what you'll find a lot of times is your worst night of running games in your head, players will still have fun. Sure. They'll find things and be like, oh, it's great,
Yeah, and it's just like anything. Like, I've gone back. Oh, look at this crazy Ike! I can't believe that you would subscribe.
Of all people,
that's amazing.
Though it is 17 months. That is incredible.
It is 17 months. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty much. That's how I know how long we've been streaming. Is how long Crazy Ike has been subscribed. Yeah. So I mean, what was I? Oh, I was gonna say that. I watch a lot. I'll go back and watch a lot of the Bardic Knowledge episodes that I do. And like in my head, sometimes when I finish an episode, I'm like, that was kind of trash tonight. Like, I don't really feel like I did anything. And then I go back and I'll watch it to review, literally, so I can be like, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And I watch it and I'm like, actually, I think that was a pretty good show. And the chat was really active and, whatever. So it's like, it's the same thing with anything is you got to do the thing and then you can't listen to your own head too much. You have to take it into consideration, but you can't let it be the end-all be-all. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I do see some names in the chat that I haven't seen before. So, for some of you that are here in the chat, you may not know what Cam's talking about when he's talking about Bardic Knowledge. Let's do a quick rundown of what your show is. And also, hello, Poison Ivy Pika. Welcome to the chat.
Hey, what's up? So Bardic Knowledge I run on Tuesday nights, 8 o'clock Central Time, all about music. It is basically, it started, the first, 8 or so episodes were all writing specific music for the characters for the big kind of game that we play on the channel here, Everstorm game, the one that's been running the longest at least. And will probably run a lot longer, so we wanted to make some, some kind of permanent, more staple type things. So I was to make music and Levi was to make art for it and all that sort of thing. So that is the music show. So I was writing a lot of those themes. Now that I've got the themes for every character done, I've been doing a lot of other things. Just again, exploring like different types of music, different types of instrumentation. I've been throwing around ideas in my head of kind of how to make that programming even better. So I think we're going to be implementing maybe more like teaching elements or more like example elements and stuff like that. So once the themes were kind of done, I was like, oh, I should do something else. There's not this like glaring tunnel visioned goal that was always there. So now that that's gone, I can kind of explore other ways on there. So hopefully to make better content for you people. So
well, and I will say that's been my favorite thing about your show is that from the first episode on, you were doing a lot more than just making interesting music. You were walking us through what was happening in the process, and you actually have a background in this. We're going to get to that wisdom check question from Dustin here in a second. But, you have a background in music. Obviously we both played in band. We did a lot of jazz band together, orchestra, all that stuff together. But you went on beyond that into the college world of, getting actual, actual in-depth training in music.
That's right.
And as a result, you're able to actually share that with an audience. And I think you have a really good way of expressing that and making it understandable and palatable for a non-musician.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I my college career kind of took a lot of different directions. So
well, that'll happen when you can't read, right?
Yeah, it's true. You got to just avoid things, whatever involved. The funny thing is, my degree is in history, which probably took the most reading out of anything possible. But for 2 years, I was a music major, and kind of got out of it just because it was the schedule was so overwhelming that it was really burning me out. And at a point, I was like, man, I just really don't want to deal with music right now. And that was like a big wake-up call to me. So I kind of switched things. But after that, I got a history degree, but I also took a bunch of education classes. So I've got music experience. I've got education experience. My mom has been a teacher for as long as I can remember. So I kind of just took all those things in because I know that most people watching our channel, they come here because the magnet to our channel is the gaming, and rightfully so. Like, I don't have any complaints about that. But that also, in my head, I know that most of the people I'm talking to that find us, especially through gaming, don't have a background in music. So if I just start spouting off jargon, nobody's going to know what's happening. But a lot of times jargon gets in the way of learning something that maybe a concept that's not really that difficult. So I try to do that. I guess kind of an evolving goal of the show that I didn't really think about when I first started has kind of been to maybe either inspire someone that has never done it before to do it, or, and I've really been thinking a lot about this. And again, I want to figure out a way to implement this in here, but the stuff that I do, I will not deny I have an advantage on doing it because of the education that I had. But you don't need that education to do things like that.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's what I really kind of want to hope that I can bring home. And again, that just do the thing type of thing, and that's why I'm always talking about, hey, here's the thing you can download for free. Here's the thing that is going to cost you nothing to try. You can sit in your living room, in your office, and just fiddle with it for hours on end, and then you might make something you like, and then you might learn something from it. You might go on. You might not, but I'd feel like that it's general knowledge that's not that hard to understand, but is not often explained. So I try to do that in there. So
fantastic. And so in all of that, we got a wisdom check question from Plague State.
We did.
Wanted to know horror music for Zweihander?
I've actually thought about it. So it would just be it would just have to compile enough. That's what it would take. So I've thought about it. I've considered it. So I might be working on some things like that in the near future. We'll see.
Like tomorrow?
It's possible. I've thought about it. I'll have to go in and see. So with horror, which is interesting, not a ton of like sustained melodies and not a ton of like harmonic movements that are pleasing to the ear. So I almost have to kind of go through the sounds I have available to me right now and make sure I have enough things that can be dramatic and weird and jarring, because that's what you need it to be.
It's tension, right? It's those like chords that don't get resolved. It's the like sustained dissonance, that kind of stuff.
Or just like noises that happen out of nowhere. Sometimes they're loud, sometimes they're soft, sometimes you can barely hear them, but they're super creepy. Since starting doing this type of thing, I've actually started paying a lot more attention to movie soundtracks, TV show soundtracks, and that sort of thing. And there are just some fantastic ones out there. Just some really cool, just creepy stuff. Like, there's a show that's not on anymore that was called Hannibal. It's about Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, yeah.
And if you ever have a chance, I think it's on Netflix, just go watch an episode. And if I remember correctly, the entire soundtrack is all percussion, but it is the creepiest stuff you'll ever hear. It is. I think it is. If I remember correctly. So like
xylophones probably and stuff to kind of add tonality?
Not even that much tuned percussion. A lot of just untuned percussion, but it was super creepy.
Huh.
Yep. And another one that we're watching now that I guess it came out a little while ago, it's a German show called Dark.
Yeah, I watched all of Dark. Yeah.
Super creepy, in parts, and just like dramatic big hits. Yeah, it's super cool. But yeah, it's stuff like that. It's a different animal, so it will definitely be an experiment.
Well, there was a question earlier also, another wisdom check redemption. By the way, if you're in the chat and you haven't been hanging out with us up to this point, you will accrue cams, is what we call them, named after this guy right here, actually. And if you accrue them, you could spend 200 of them to get a wisdom check question redeemed. And what that will mean is, so long as it's an appropriate question that won't get us in super nasty weeds of the dark recess of the internet, we'll ask it and then we'll answer it. And the question we got was from Airlaser. She wanted to know, can she pay Cam to make her badass theme song?
Absolutely. I have been starting to do some commissions. Your dad knows that. Dave did commission me for a few songs there, so I got some for him. I'm probably going to be working on something in the near future for another person we're related to in here. I won't necessarily talk about it yet, but
sweet.
Absolutely. I've been starting to wander into that world, so definitely can do that. So.
What would the process be like on that? So if somebody in the chat or somebody coming to your show tomorrow wanted to know how to go about this, what does that look like?
Well, first of all, we want to know kind of the general characteristics of what you want. Is this, like Airlaser said, would be like a theme song. Okay, I know what a theme song is. Is this I need music for a 10-second intro to my YouTube channel? That's a different thing. Or I need something that's going to go behind a game, and it needs to be atmospheric and ambient, and it doesn't need to be in the foreground. Like, that's a different thing. So kind of need to figure that out. General length of time. Again, is it going to be a 10-second thing? Is it going to be, I need 2 minutes that I can loop, or, hey, I want a 5-minute thing for a video that I'm going to time lapse, so something like that. And then, general ideas of tone. Is it going to be happy? Is it going to be melancholy? Is it going to be creepy? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? Is there a piece of music or a song that you like already that captures that tone? Yeah. So, I mean, that's a common thing that movie directors do. They will just put in music that's already exists into their first cut of their film, and then they have whoever's scoring the film, they're like, here's all the tracks that I put in there. This is the idea I want, but I want you to make something original based on those ideas. So so something like that. And then again, every project's different, so answers lead to more questions, and then that's how you kind of refine it down to
a lot of back and forth. Yeah, so like there's some things that have been kind of popping in here. It looks like she's looking for specifically something for an intro to her Dungeons and Dragons games that they play on their stream.
Sure.
She says it needs another redemption here. It needs lyrics and singing also. So you're on the spot for that.
Oh boy, we may have to outsource that. I know some people. It's fine.
There's a couple other things she's on about here. So she said to remind you that she also prepaid for the Cam song to be a ringtone. So we still have to do that.
Really, I have not seen any of those royalties, but that's okay. We can still work that out. We can work that out. I think it needs to be revisited.
I want the exact one that was just that stupid version was just literally somebody Levi saying camp.
Yeah, just that.
Just with some music maybe in the background, but
I feel like maybe the Levi singing the camp should be implemented
prominent
in there. I think that's important. Yeah,
central.
That's a very important part of it. So
the other thing that was talked about though is Airlaser's interested in the song from
the
Eversong,
song. Yes,
the 5th edition.
I was thinking about that today.
And Levi says he's got notes about what that song should be like. So
beautiful.
That would be kind of cool.
I was just thinking about that today, actually.
Can you tell the audience what that is? If they
sorry. So in our 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons games, I play a character called Morgaine. Morgaine is not a bard, but he does play music. And Levi, before the game ever started, he was like, Cam, whatever character you play, I'm going to give you some special secret sauce, because I think he just kind of likes to do that with a with a player every different game. And he's like, I haven't ever done that for you, so this time we're going to do it for you. So I was like, okay, cool. And I kind of told him about the character, and he's like, okay, I got the idea. So basically, my character stumbles upon this song that is... It's almost like a bardic inspiration, but not really controlled by me.
And super depressing.
And it's super depressing. And it almost does the opposite of bardic inspiration, where it's, it makes everybody just kind of stop doing what they're doing and all that sort of thing. And then there is now a new song too, that's a song of hope. So I was thinking about both of those things.
Sorry, Crazy Ike Gaming just told a joke in the chat that actually got me laughing. He said to remind you that the secret sauce is just Thousand Island. Don't tell him.
Yeah.
I broke the rule. I'm sorry about that, but that had to be shared.
It's got to be different secret sauce. I'm not even that big on Thousand Island, so.
So this song has played a lot of impact in the game so far, and of course we don't know what it sounds like. We know that there are some notes to it in the sense that it has a kind of a haunting nature to it, a reminder of like home, and kind of a longing or like a lost component to it.
Yeah.
So everyone's kind of built this in her head a little bit. Hey, Laugh Love Lindy just rated us with 13
thanks,
viewers.
Lindy, for the raid. We very much appreciate it. Rating with 13. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, we like to reiterate what we're doing whenever we get a new influx of people. So welcome to the chat. Tonight I am joined with Cameron, who's one of my fellow gamers in our tabletop group. He does music for our channel. He has a background in music, and we are talking about the impacts of music in gaming. In particular, right now we're discussing the song in our game, and it's a component of our game that keeps coming up for story reasons. It has some impacts mechanically, but we're talking about the fact that we don't know much about it from the audio sense, like what does it actually sound like? And I think the one thing we can agree on immediately is that the inclusion of music at the table really added something, and it changed something. It really made scenes that were already amazing just that much more impactful. There was more emotion kind of seeped into it. And so I would be really fascinated to see how the song gets actually turned into a musical piece.
Yeah. I was thinking about that earlier this week, because that's going to be on the docket of something else I'm going to need to do. And I feel like it should be, some of it at least should be on stream too. But it's, I think that should definitely happen. It's a little intimidating though, because it's so important. It's like, it is so important that like it's got to be right. It's got to be the song. So but I think I want to be implementing that soon. I do want to do the Song of Hope as well. We're only level 8 or 9 or whatever we are. Like, I have a feeling that there will be more songs that appear in the future as well. So at some point, I feel like there's going to be another song even. So
well, that's why you need to get on it now, because the
workload's
just going to keep accruing. So the notes that Leviathan has to say here is despair-born nostalgia, and then the Song of Hope is a song of dumb. No one cares. Okay, sure. I know it helps us. I don't know. I like the buff that we get from that Leviathan.
I think it's great. I think it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
hey,
I think. Yeah. Hey, Crouch. I think what you're talking about with the music too, in like during game, like even if it's not the song, it's just like background music. That was a big thing. I was really looking forward to getting into the game. Not just the battle music, but the other things too, just because I think about when you watch a movie, like if there's a movie that doesn't have any music, or doesn't even if it's just like little background, just barely there type stuff, the only time there's ever a movie or a TV show or anything that it's like that, it's because they're sending a message. It's because we purposefully are making this stark right now, so it's like a thing that's always present. And I really felt like, even though it's a lot of it's the game, what we're doing in game playing is improvised. There's no reason why we couldn't give it some sort of soundtrack like a scripted show would be. So that was always kind of my goal with that. And then there's a lot of technology issues that we dealt with, but
sure did.
We got those mostly ironed out now. But yeah, it was really important to me that we made the music, and not only it came through the stream, but as much as I love the streamers and as much as all of our viewers that watch the stream, it was even more important to me that my fellow players got to hear it, because I really felt like it was actually going to enhance our roleplay. It was going to. It did. Like if you're like feeling an emotion, all of a sudden now there's this song that's pushing that emotion in that direction. Now all of a sudden, I think your roleplay is enhanced, and I think so too. No matter how good or bad the music is, like as long as it's not so bad that it's distracting, then it's gonna enhance roleplay, and not only are we gonna have a better time playing, viewers are gonna have a better time watching. I think so. Yeah, that's why it was so important that
in the chat here, Time of Gifts says that even when movies were silent, theaters would improvise music. Yeah, they would. They'd have live performances or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. It's super important. Like, it's super important, and I don't think I'm just as guilty as anyone else. You don't think about it until you listen for it, or until it's not there, and then you're like, oh wait, why is everything so weird? Even better is when they take a scene that is very serious. Like somebody's being intimidated. There's like a dark, somber, like predator coming down with a knife or something, and then they switch the music out for something kind of silly. And the entire scene is different, or vice versa. It could just be like a guy going to buy flowers or something, and put like the typical horror music in the background, and suddenly you're apprehensive and you're like, oh my god, what's about to happen in this flower shop? Like, what's around the corner? It just primes you. It just gets you ready in like an unconscious level. And I think that is critical. Like, I know since we've added music to our stream, which has really been just the last couple games.
Few games.
There's been a anxiety there that should be present in the scene, but I didn't feel it, physically until the music was there. Well, and then as soon as I have it,
I'm glad that we're accomplishing that. I'm glad that's what we're doing. So
it was cool.
Twisty conversation, I think, is the one that everybody was like, "What's happening?" It's so creepy and weird. So, yeah. And again, that was the goal. Again, I didn't necessarily think what I was writing was a masterpiece, but it was. Does this convey an emotion? Let me, tag it as what type of emotion it is. When that emotion arises in game, make sure we cue that up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think, again, I'm not really there. I'm not trying to, you know, like you said, you have the same clip twice, where one is the guy's walking down the street and then there's this guy coming at him that's intimidating, and there's like type of like bouncy music, and it's just kind of a goofy comedy thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's all of a sudden it's like now you're like, oh my god, this guy's gonna murder him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I'm not trying to steer like that. I'm more trying to interpret and push in the same direction. So it's a bit of a juggling act, but you know, I think that's why I'm trying to have pieces for every type, and then I can just kind of punch them in as we steer it. So we can steer it with our role play.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing. Like Air Laser points out, you know, like the twisted conversation definitely added to the seriousness of the scene, and it gave that sense that something was about to unfold.
Yeah.
Something was going to happen soon, and
Right.
I mean that's really good. And also, if you're new to the chat and you're seeing this weird chatter going on about fun Jeff facts,
Fun facts.
these are great. These are most often complete fabrications and fiction that people are talking
No,
about.
they're all true.
Some of them are true. So it's kind of like that, like, you know, lies and a truth kind of thing. They're hilarious. Be my guest to make up your own favorite Jeff facts, and we'll hopefully compile them at some point, and we'll have a silly thing later on.
There's been a number of cam facts tonight too. I haven't caught them all, but I've seen them popping in here and there. So
if you catch us laughing uncontrollably and we just go stupid for a second, you'll have the chat to blame for that.
that's what it is. It's their fault.
But yeah, I do think that there's a lot conveyed there, and I think that's a challenge when you're not the person scripting the scene.
Yeah.
It's got to be really challenging to predict, first of all, because some of what's going on in game is that Levi is trying to surprise us with his scenes. Now we come in with our own biases into a scene, and we know that, you know, like we think that maybe it could be tense, and so like we could project our own feelings into the scene, and then maybe you can make music based on your own character's projections. But outside of that, I guess you would just have to have a really broad palette of music to bring to bear.
Yeah, and what I was trying to do, like I said, I haven't made a ton of this music yet, but I've made an amount of it now. But so when I really kind of started to do this was the game before, so it was like 3 games ago or something like that, when we were about to go in and have this conversation with the skeezers, basically. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, it's true, I do wear shorts to work out. So what I had to do is I was like, okay, there's a clear, obvious thing we're about to do in this next game. I knew we were about to have a conversation. What is happening over here?
You're getting ripped into at the campfire.
That's fine. It's fine. Anyway, so I was like, okay, we're going to have this conversation. It could go one of 3 ways. Like, it's either going to get super serious and sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be everything's happy-go-lucky, we make a pact, and we're all good and we're best friends. Or we're going to get, like, crazy plot twists that nobody expected, and something's going to be weird. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to take... What I did is I took the same instrumentation, which, again, for these background things, it doesn't have to be, like, 30 instruments. I basically took a piano, a kind of low drone, and then, like, a little weird synth that would come in. And then I just wrote a piece. Actually, I improvised the pieces and then just tweaked them later. So I'd improvise a piece that was like 4 or 5 minutes long that was happy, one that was sad and longing, and then one that was super weird and creepy. And so they could all fit in the same, like they could all be slotted in the same place, but depending on where roleplay took us, I could choose which one I wanted to slot in there. So
I apparently missed a wisdom check question about 12 minutes ago from Quiz and IVP.
Okay.
I only see it because I looked at the other screen and it has it over there. She wanted to know where your guitars are. Serious question.
Oh, they're right here. They're always here. Right here.
He's just hiding them.
If I can squeeze behind me. And then we've got the one over there. So we've got them. They're just hiding behind me. They're behind the chair.
There it is.
We get the nice angled view for bardic knowledge, so we can see everything, wide shots and all that. But yeah, they're still there. They're all hiding back there. Don't worry. Don't worry. I have them out on purpose. That makes it easier to just pick up and play when you're ready.
So one of the things you prepped for ahead of time was you suspected I was going to ask you about musical influences, and I was waiting for the time where you'd kind of forgotten that was a question that could come up. But Chat has thrown one at you, saying that you were in fact a massive Creed fan, which to me is hilarious because I remember high school. So let's break into the fact that obviously listening to music kind of inspires you to make music. Yes. And it probably seeps into your unconscious a bit when you're creating new content going forward. So what were the sorts of music that you really focused on then versus now? And what are the commonalities between them?
Well, so if you go early on, my dad has played guitar since he was a little kid. So literally has been playing since before I was ever born. So I remember hearing blaring guitars since I was a little kid, and there are photos of baby Cam barely can stand, like dancing around in the living room to Van Halen records and stuff. So like that stuff happened. So there's this huge base of classic rock that's just kind of always there, even though I never really was like, I'm gonna listen to this. This is my music, you know. And then once I started branching off and was like, I'm going to listen to my own music, this is what we're going to do, it kind of took a while to figure it out. Like, it was weird, because thinking back, at the time, it didn't seem weird at all. But thinking back, it was, you know, okay, here's a thing, and this is like grungy rock. And I'm like, okay, I kind of like this, but even though I liked it, there was something weird and missing. And to the fun Cam fact, I did in fact listen to a fair amount of Creed in high school.
Wore a lot of their shirts.
Now I'm going to caveat that by today still, I will still say that the guitar player Mark Tremonti is freaking fantastic, and I still love him. I don't necessarily, like, the type of music he makes is not like my go-to, but fantastic guitar player, very like punk metal influenced. And that was actually kind of that transition of when, you know, there was some like really metal-y things happening in Creed, even though it was kind of overshadowed by some of the other stuff. Sorry, Creed. I'm sorry. You guys were fine. Do what you do. It's fine. I'm sorry we're ragging on you right now. Anyway, so there was this like metal-y things that were happening that I really liked, but I didn't know why I liked. And then even before then, there was a good friend of mine that I grew up with, that lived around the corner from me. A lot of us know. Had an older brother who was just all into Metallica, 100% into Metallica, and he was
that doesn't
like
really
5,
narrow
6 years
anything
old.
down. Like it could be anybody.
It's true, but I mean like full on, not just like I like Metallica and I listen to it. Like owned everything, loved it, right? And you know he was 16, 17, had a car. We were still in junior high. During the summer, he's watching us. We're driving around listening to Metallica. I don't really know why. I kind of like it, but it was happening. And then I think the big aha moment for me was the year 2000. It was not aha. Dream Theater's Scenes from Memory.
Yeah, pretty good album.
100% changed everything. Like, I didn't know you could do that. Like, I'm listening to this album, like, I didn't know people were allowed to play that good and to make music that was that dramatic and that, like, changing, and I had no idea. And that is kind of where trajectory, like, we're going like this, and then we just changed, and we went a different way.
Yeah, from
and I think that was
to Prague, yeah.
Yeah, it was a big influence there. And then, I mean, since then, I've just more and more just moved away from like what's considered popular music. And I mean, if you look through my music collection, unless you're into any of that stuff, you probably don't know who any of it is. Like, I sound like a total hipster, but like it's just like you probably don't know who they are. I don't know any of it on vinyl though, so that's one point for
well,
me.
you know, it's one foot out of that camp. Yeah.
That's right. But yeah, it's stuff like that, and it's, you know, I will claim to be a bit of a metalhead, but it's certainly not all metal. Like,
no,
I like a lot of things that aren't metal. Like, Regina Spektor is one of my favorite artists, and she just sings and plays piano, and she's fantastic. She is absolutely amazing. Great songwriter. Love it. You know, and you always find stuff. Like, I'm not the type of person that's going to find 10 new bands I like every year. Like, maybe I'll find one. And it might be some, like, recent one that I found that stopped making music, like, almost 10 years ago, called Carnival. I'd heard the name before, didn't know anything about them. Started listening to them on a suggestion by a guitar player on YouTube that I really, really admire. And then I was like, holy crap, these guys are amazing. How did I miss this? You know, so it's stuff like that. You know, Tool was kind of a good, branching off point there, because they were like, we're prog, but we're kind of grungy. Like, you don't know, we're going to do whatever we want. And, you know, kind of just really stuff, the people that didn't care what people wanted them to do, because they did what they wanted to do.
Yeah,
and I
that's
guess
still a hard one to pin down. Is I would almost call Tool psychedelic rock.
Almost
exactly, and then with a darker kind of bent.
Yeah, but you know, bands like Mastodon are called psychedelic metal too, and I wouldn't put them in the same category at all. Like, I love them both, but
maybe.
Yeah, but they don't.
Yeah. They're not the same category. You know?
Yeah, it's, you know, and that's the thing. I was always a music listener, because I wasn't necessarily, I was playing music, but I wasn't like creating my own for a long time. And when you're a listener, you're like, oh, I liked this genre, this genre, this genre. But the more and more you find out about the people that are making the music, they could care less about a genre in most cases. Like, they're like, who cares? Like, I make music, and then somebody categorizes it for me. Like, they're not making music so that it will be something. They make music because they made music. So, so that's, you know, again, that Dream Theater album was huge. And then I would say probably Between the Buried and Me's Colors really, really pushed me in another direction too. So those are probably the two most influential albums I've ever heard. So.
Now, earlier, Leviathan actually asked with a wisdom check question what your top 5 bands were, and not in any particular order. So there you are. You're getting jammed into that question.
Oh, man. Okay. We'll do top 5 bands, and how about for different reasons? So,
okay.
Dream Theater is going to be the legacy. Like, Dream Theater is not a thing that I buy every album and I listen to it over and over and over and over. But every time I hear something they do, or every time I've seen them in concert, I've just been like, wow, you know, like, okay, that is, whatever they're doing right now is amazing, and I'm super interested in it, even if it's not a thing that I'm going to just listen to 1,000 times, even though I did listen to that one album 1,000 times over and over again. So we'll do that. Yeah, go listen to some Dream Theater. That's Air Laser. They're definitely not a hipster band in the least. So I would say, again, Tool. Tool really kind of opened me up to a lot of that odd time signature type stuff. And again, Dream Theater did a lot of that too, but it was like a constantly moving, like constantly changing thing. Whereas Tool is like, we're going to take a weird time signature and we're going to keep doing that weird time signature. And then we're going to make things kind of overlap and layer. And that was just like super cool, like thing that I get really interested in hearing in all types of music. Let's see. So Between the Buried and Me's Colors, like I said, they super push the limit. Like, they're a metal band, they're a prog band, but
it's hard to define who they are.
Yeah, you can't pin them down. Like, they take boundaries and they just shove through them. Like, I would liken it to what people say about the Dillinger Escape Plan, but the Dillinger Escape Plan is a little too much for me, and I can't get into it. So,
well, I mean, when your whole
Between the Buried and Me is mine, you know.
Yeah, I mean, when you get your whole entire concept is to make music that is unappealing, like Dillinger Escape Plan's entire thing is, this is supposed to be discordant and nasty and disgusting and repulsive. They nailed it.
But it is, if you really listen to it and you don't try to enjoy it, this is going to sound really weird. And if you don't be like, I'm going to sit down and enjoy this, and you think about what they're doing and why they're doing it, it is genius. It really is. It's just,
It's
not
really
my thing. It's
not
just
fun to
not
listen
my
to.
thing.
Yeah. So we got
and-
Tool, you got Dream Theater, you got Between the Buried and Me.
Between the Buried and Me.
You got two more.
Two more. This is like
Struggle Bus.
the worst. Yeah, this is the worst. I would say we're just gonna go with album that I just thought was out of this world and unexpected on how good it was Language by the Contortionists.
Ooh, yeah.
It was a departure from what they had done before, and it
Mhm.
was new and different, and it was heavy, but it was emotional, and it was like what they accomplished on that record was amazing.
That's probably
And
one of my top.
then, yeah, and I'm leaving so many out. Like, I can't even tell you how many I'm leaving out here.
That's what makes that last one really hard for you, because there's only 5
I know.
options. It's like
I
MySpace.
know, and like there's probably 100 bands I could name here, but I'm gonna go with Coheed and Cambria because they are a departure from most of those other bands.
Okay.
And they have so much music. Like, they have a billion albums, and they're all different. And they take prog, they take classic rock, they take just straight up pop and kind of meld it into its own thing. It's like, I can just sing along with this melody, and this is great. And then you read the lyrics, you're like, oh, this entire song is about how this guy is insane and he thinks his 10-speed bicycle is talking to him and trying to convince him to murder this other person. Like,
Stuff
it
that
doesn't make
happens,
any sense.
It's a day-to-day
Right,
things.
right. So, like, it's pretty genius in its own way. And like I said, I'm leaving a ton out. I could, Periphery is huge. Mastodon is huge. I could, honestly, I would be like, here's my list of all the music I own, and those are my influences. Like, I could do that, but I've been restricted. So if I had to take like Desert Island so I can hear different things and it's not all the same, that's probably what I'd do.
Awesome. Well, that's
what I
Cam.
do.
Now, for those of you guys in the chat and or people watching later on YouTube or listening later, I guess the listeners won't be able to comment, but go ahead and let us know what kinds of music really kind of get to you, like that kind of resonate with you. Maybe why. I'm kind of interested to see just kind of what our audience is made up of. Like what sorts of things kind of come into it. Because
I see Air Laser asked favorite Tool album. She says hers is Fear Inoculum.
Lateralist.
Lateralist
Not
is
a
the
question.
best album, one of the best albums of all time.
Yeah.
In rock, in my opinion. So that would have to be mine. So
Yeah, the second best where it gets hard, because for me it's either Anima or Fear Inoculum, and I'm not. I lean towards Anima, but
I would pick
Fear
Anima.
Inoculum is pretty good. So we'll kind of get people a chance to see that. Plague State redeemed question Curbside Grass Reunion Tour, which is a little inside joke, not joke, but inside story.
That was high school band was called Curbside Grass. That was the band name. Myself, Levi's little brother. A couple of us did an offshoot for a one performance with our man Jeff here on vocals, doing a Tool song at the high school talent show my senior year.
Yeah, that did happen. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good time.
So,
well, so musical influences definitely come in. I guess now the question is, where do you see it coming into play in the music you're making now?
Yeah, that's actually really strange. I think about that sometimes, and again, it's a thing I've heard. Like, I used to play a lot of music, but I didn't used to write a lot of music, like younger days. And you would always hear these artists when they talk in interviews or whatever. You're like, oh, what's your biggest influence? And it's this like metal guy, or some hard rock grunge guy, and they're like, what's your what really influenced you? They're like Paul Simon, or they'll be like Little Richard, like stuff that you're like, what? That doesn't sound anything like it, and it feels weird. But like, it's crazy where things influence you and you don't think about it until you do it, and then you're like, oh, that sounds like a thing that I remember from this music that I heard over here, and you get influenced by it, and when you're done with it, it doesn't sound anything like what it came from, but it was squarely influenced by it. So it's kind of an interesting process. And again, now that I make more music than I just play, it just becomes more and more apparent, like, what those people were really saying in those interviews that I always heard and were never quite understood, because it comes into play. It comes into play all the time. And again, there's a ton of music that I love that is maybe nothing like what I'm making, but it is certainly the conglomeration of all of it has put the ideas in place to do what I'm doing now. So, and
it's interesting because what you're doing now is different than what they're doing, in that you're making music to set a mood, to sit in the background, to be a supplement to a game. Whereas obviously when you're writing an album or packing a stadium, that's not the same kind of situation.
Absolutely.
Do you know, let's see, when you're kind of making things for your show, like, have you sat down and like actively thought, here's something I'm making, like I'm basing it around this concept from this thing I saw? And I'm going to catch this chat from Poison Ivy before she takes off. She has to get going, spend time with Beyonce.
She's taking off.
Thank you very much. We'll see you around.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, appreciate you coming.
So I have, I'm not recalling exactly what at this point, but like I will hear something, whether it be like a song I know from an album I like, or I can't even remember what the source material was, but I specifically remember sometime in the last 4 or 5 weeks, I was watching a TV show or watching a movie or something that I heard something that was portraying, whatever emotion during a thing. I'm like, oh, what it's doing right now is what I want to accomplish for Project X, So I recall specifically, like, I have a little keyboard app on my phone, and so what I do is I'll literally pop it out and I'll just like play it with one finger on my phone and just kind of figure out what's happening, and then remember what element that I liked and what I wanted to use it for. So definitely has done that. Good example actually would be the kind of Shadowrun inspired thing I did the other day.
I really thought you said shower inspired one. I was like, yeah, that's where all good ideas come from. I thought you said shower one.
No, well, I've done that too. Shadowrun. I have done that. I've done the shower where something comes up and I have to get out and like play it or something. But the Shadowrun inspired one I did, the baseline was very like Tool. It was like, oh, here's inspired probably mostly by like 46 and 2, kind of that feel, that kind of groove. And again, it evolved into something completely different, but that was kind of the impetus for it. That was what started it. So
nice.
So it definitely happens.
I want to say thank you, Air Laser, for the bits.
Thank you. Yes.
We got the pride flags flying, so happy Pride Month.
All right.
And accompanied with those bits, though, she wanted to make sure those bits went towards growing Cam a Monopoly Man mustache. So
I cannot help you. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to deny your requests.
No fun. No style.
Well, as important as you are to me, Air Laser, there's a lady named Alice that lives in my house that would not approve of a mustache at all.
If it looked like a Monopoly Man mustache, though.
She wouldn't stop me, and she would let me grow whatever I wanted to grow on my face, but she would complain about it, and I would have to hear it. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I mean, that is interesting, though. You're talking about the bass lines that you kind of pulling in there. Like watching your show, you've talked a lot about like the types of pulse that you're looking to generate. So whether it's a 6/8 kind of feel, whether it's a 4/4, there's stuff like there's musical concepts and themes that kind of come across that aren't really apparent until you know how to break down music. It's like if you heard like a 6/4 over a 5/4 over a 4/4, And you're like, oh,
Right.
what does this sound like? I don't know. And then you hear it and you're like, okay, that sounds like a sliding clock, lining up at some point.
Yes, and again, I will speak back to I do have some amount of education in this, and it is certainly helpful. But I think a lot of people I've heard it many times where people will describe music as a language. And in some cases that is true. But it's not exactly. So if I started speaking German to you right now and you didn't know any German, you would be lost, right? But if I was an operatic singer and I sang you something in German, it wouldn't matter what I was saying. And it also wouldn't matter that the proper techniques and the proper definitions to describe that to someone else.
Okay.
It can still move you. You know what I mean?
So you're saying it's not a language because it's universal?
No, I said it's like a language in some ways, but in other ways it's not. So
Okay.
being able to communicate it to another musician, that language is important. But if I'm a musician and I want my listener to hear it, I could care less if they know what key it's in. I don't care if they know what scale it's in. I don't care if they know anything about it. All I care is that they hear it and it brings them whatever emotion that it brings them. That's all that really matters. And again, that's kind of the thing, not to harp on it, but that's why I still say, yes, I have an education, but that is not the thing you have to make music. It is true. It is not required at all. And again, it helps and it gives me a head start, but it is not required. So it is and it isn't like a language, I guess. If I was gonna, there's ways it fits into both. So
what I find interesting about music, and like what we were talking about before, is that it creates a mood, it sets a mood, it influences you, and what's fascinating about that is that kind of makes it a universal, right? So you end up with a conveyance of feeling, whether somebody wants to feel it or not, it hits them.
Yep.
But there are tricks to that, which is interesting. Because like everyone gets those moments in a song, like it's really just amazing, beautiful, and then their hair stands on end and they get the chill. But that's something you can just do on demand. Like there is a trick to that.
Sure.
It's weird that there are defined things that you can just be like, this will create that experience. 100% of the time.
And it can. There are things like that just certain movements, and I don't know, I've never gotten this deep into it, but the reason that there are 12 notes in a scale, is actually based on physics. It's not just a thing somebody made up, because it's all just vibrations, and it's all in hertz. Like it could be any variation of hertz, but like those vibrations occur in nature, and there's a reason why certain combinations of those vibrations will have an effect, and it's not an accident that the notes that are notes are that way, because people assigned names and knowledge to them because they were prevalent, not because they just wanted to make something up. And I think that is either not known or it's forgotten a lot of times, so
one of my favorite one of these things that I came across was not directly related to music, but there were like all these like ghost stories, right? Like, oh, this place is haunted.
Sure.
Everyone has these same experiences. Anytime you get around this area, you start to feel a thing. And it was really interesting because they did a scientific study and they detected that in all these places, there was a natural resonance occurring with the structure of the building that created a really low frequency sound that was the same pitch as a tiger's growl.
Yeah, it's like a predator of some sort.
Yeah, and so it created it's an inaudible sound, like we can't hear it, and yet it creates an intense dread and fear. And so like most of these places where people are experiencing these, if you do that test, you'll see that. And so it's like this really weird evolutionary thing, like obviously, at some point in our history, it was good to get scared and run away from a place.
Absolutely.
Where you detect a tiger,
Yes.
But
a lot
nowadays,
of it's primal. Yeah.
But nowadays it creates something completely unique and strange.
Just manipulating your emotions. That's what us musicians do. We
I
just
believe it.
manipulate you.
That's all you do. I know. So yeah, that's. I think it's pretty fascinating. I do find that those two things are like really strange to me. That you can have a dependable response. Like that you can have this sound will produce that. These two chords next to each other will create this condition. These pieces moving against one another will create this sort of tension. Like it doesn't seem to matter who's listening to it. Even it just it will occur.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'm trying to think if that actually occurs with like other forms of art. Like when you look at something visually. I mean, I guess if you had like something like an optical illusion, maybe, but
true,
more interpretive things. I don't know that it really does the same sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the only real example I can think of is like, I know, and I can't think of a specific piece of art, but there's definitely art out there where I might look at it and be like, that is beautiful, and you might look at it and be like, that is disgusting and weird, And again, it's probably something strange and abstract, but it's about interpretation, and that is also the case somewhat in music. Most of the time you are right that it's like pretty predictable. If I do this, it's going to cause this emotion no matter who hears it, no matter what their background is. But I think of like old like Russian songs or old like Yiddish like wedding tunes and stuff like that. They're actually all kind of this weird minor scale, like that if you took it out, maybe you slowed it down and you orchestrated it differently, it would actually be kind of weird and haunting. But it's actually this celebration song, that is based on a minor key, which is a little different. Or there's even there's a lot of like Japanese, Chinese, kind of Asian area music that they do these like quarter tones, which to us sounds really kind of strange sometimes. But to them it could be like, oh, this is like a beautiful song of, this is a beautiful love song or something like that, and maybe to a different ear. So there are a little bit of that cultural changes there, but you are right. Most of the time you can predict, if I write this, it doesn't matter who hears it, they're going to have a reaction somewhat like this. So it is, there are exceptions to the rule, but I think you are right that it is somewhat predictable.
I got two things I'm seeing in the chat to go along with these. So as we're talking about that, Leviathan points out that color psychology is real, but it is interesting because it is culture specific, whereas I'm not sure that music is. I mean, maybe to a degree it is, but he's saying that.
I think with a couple of outliers, yes, but I would, and I'm not an expert, but I would think you're right that music is a little more universal.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, who knows? I mean, I'm not an expert, but it is interesting because he's pointing out that Americans will see a white thing meaning one thing, whereas in India it will mean a different thing. Or. Sure. If you have historical ties to a specific color, like orange, maybe, for Tibetans, it has a completely different meaning than it would for us.
Right.
So like there's a lot of those things probably that hit deep, but then there's other things about colors that seem pretty universal. Like you see green and yellow makes people hungry. You see...
I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's why subways are those colors.
Well, that makes sense. Good job, Subway.
Oftentimes, companies will make their stools and their booths red because it subconsciously tells you to go away.
Oh.
So they want to clear the lobby.
So they want to turn their tables?
Yeah. So
Okay,
there's a lot of these weird little things in there that kind of do that. So maybe, I don't know if that's universal, if that's also culture dependent, but there seems to be there's all kinds of studies about colors creating psychological effects. Like they have it in like workplace psychology. So like that's why certain places are painted the way they are. But the other thing I was wanting to come back to here before it goes off my screen, which it actually just did, is Time of Gifts was saying, what about it just went off the screen again. What about composers like Wagner who delay the resolution of musical phrases to keep the audience on edge?
Yeah, that's very, I wouldn't say common, but it is it's definitely along those lines of where you were saying about I can do this specific thing and I'm going to cause a specific reaction from my listener. That's definitely one of those things is and again, it all goes back to like harmonic resonances and stuff. We know what leads to what, you know. We hear a thing and we know it leads to this other thing. And then again, examples that they're giving right there is when, okay, I've heard all this stuff, I know it, I'm predicting it, I know what's happening, here we go, and it's supposed to go right now, but then it doesn't. And then that actually creates a whole new thing in your ear, and that grabs your attention, and that is, you know, it's one mode of conveying something, you know. It's just again one of those tricks of like, oh my God, something just happened that I wasn't expecting, and now I have to reevaluate what I'm listening to. And I think that is definitely a good example of that, of one of those tools that you can use to do that. So for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff. Well, and so kind of touching on that, our other topic was about gamification. And so you're talking about using tools, like tools in the music portfolio, tools in the painting side of things. And it seems like now there's a trend towards taking game concepts, like, scoring, achievements, quests, leveling up, like all these kind of concepts, and applying them to things that normally wouldn't have those in there. And the one that I was thinking of for a topic here has to do with working out. So there's a lot of movement now for gamers in particular, whether it's video gamers or tabletop gamers. Thanks for the follow there, Gnomes. Much appreciated.
Hey, thank
Gnomes
you so much,
LFG.
Gnomes.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
But it's fascinating because there's been a big movement in the gamer culture to get fit. And it's fascinating because I if you look at what a gamer does habitually, it's set long-term goals, work feverishly towards them, find accountability along the way, and measure progress. Right. These are things that like we do like incessantly. So like it's really interesting to see that they're finally finding ways to make it more obvious, I guess, to people. And I think as a result, we're seeing more people getting into it. Now,
that's definitely true.
You're into fitness, obviously. We've kind of gone about this in the past. Maybe not obvious for everyone at home that doesn't know you. But that is something that is an important part of your life that you're doing, looking to do professionally. So, where are you seeing these sorts of things coming into play? And actually, I guess we should start with what's your background in that. I already know it, so I forget that it's a question.
That's okay. I am a certified USA weightlifting coach, level 1 coach. I've also have experience with starting strength method, with the barbell medicine methods, that sort of thing. I do coach others, technically as a general term, like a personal trainer, but more specifically like a strength coach. So I do come from more of a weightlifting first type of approach to it. But yes, when you talk about gamification, the kind of the school of thought that I subscribe to is that if someone's not doing anything and now they're doing something, that is a win, is a win, is a win. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't care what you're doing. If you are sitting on the couch today and tomorrow you walked around the block because you were, chasing Pokemon, I'm in. Do it. That's gonna. Again, doing something instead of nothing is one of the biggest. Like, if you were to take efficiency of improvement, doing something instead of nothing is the biggest step you can possibly take. Like, you might think, well, these like super athletes that are whatever, they're sprinting as fast as they can and they just improve themselves by 0.2 of a second on their 100-meter dash, or this weightlifter just increased his best lift ever by 1 kilo. Like, that is an amazing thing that they have done, but it is not nearly the stride that you take from doing nothing to doing something. So
Right. Yeah.
anything that I might criticize about gamification of, fitness activities or anything like that, please keep that in mind, that any criticisms I have, there's always the fact that if you're doing something instead of nothing, 100% of the time it's positive. So that is one thing I think gamification has really helped. It has gotten people that are doing nothing into doing something. And that is by far, especially with as much, obesity, at least in our country. I know we have some Canadians and other countries that watch our chat here. In America, obesity is a huge deal. Type 2 diabetes is a result of a lot of that. A lot of different things can come of that. And again, doing something instead of nothing is a massive step to make an individual less affected by such things. And so I think, again, no matter any criticisms that come up in the rest of the conversation, please remember doing something instead of nothing is the biggest step you can possibly take. So,
well, criticisms are warranted, and it's in a discussion you're going to have this like give and take a little bit.
Sure.
Some of the stuff I find interesting about the gamification is, I find that the accountability is a big part, right? So if you have like an app that you record your achievements and you're unlocking whatever, like today I did the quest for deadlifting 5 times or whatever, these things you could share as a social media kind of thing. I think that is helpful. Like I found when we were working out, you and I, and we started going to the gym, having the logbook, or having the times put up on the wall, or somebody hitting a personal best in whatever they're doing, and then everyone being like, "Yo, so and so did this thing." I found that was really big in getting me to come back day in, day out.
Absolutely.
And I don't know that I would have done that on my own. Like, I like to think that I have a lot of, willpower and, drive to do things on my own. But the reality is, when I see some of these other things, I do them better. Because, I don't know, for me, I find that being accountable to another person is easier than being accountable to myself.
100%. 100%. And that you are not alone. That is a tried and true method. If anybody's out there and they're like, I really want to start whatever, I want to start walking, I want to start running, I want to start lifting weights, I want to start doing whatever. If you have a battle buddy, you are, I don't know statistics, but I would guess you are degrees of magnitude more likely to continue doing that and to do it for a longer time if you have a battle buddy. And again, it's not, you don't have to have somebody that's like yelling at you like, come on, let's do this, right. But it's the fact that you're on a team now, it's me and my buddy, we're doing this together, and maybe I don't feel like it today. And if it was just up to me, I'm not, forget it. I'm going to go do this other thing, and we'll just work out again in a few days. No big deal. But when you know that someone else is showing up at that gym and they're expecting you to be there, or they're showing up, they're going to come to your front door and say, hey, I thought we were walking around the block today, or we're going to go walk for an hour, or whatever we're going to do. Like, that's a whole nother level of accountability that is massively helpful. And again, it gets you there. It's that extra push, because the chances of both people, or if there's a group of 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever, the chances of the majority of that group being like, nah, I don't want to do it today, are pretty low. Right. Even if the chances of one person being like, oh, I don't really feel like it today. And again, if 6 out of 10 are like, let's do it, 2 people are like, whatever, and then 2 people are like, I don't really feel like it, everybody's going to do it. Those 2 people aren't going to go home, and the 2 people that are on the fence about it aren't going to just like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll just go halfway. Like, everybody's going to do it. So accountability, again, massively helpful. So do something instead of nothing, get a buddy.
So on that topic, there's a redeemed wisdom check question from Animal G21.
Yes.
Who wants to know, who is your workout buddy?
Well, I've had many a workout buddy. Currently, my buddy Alejandro, my buddy Sam, who we've kind of decided that because they're also friends with Alice, we've kind of all decided that we are social distancing and sheltering in place from basically everyone except for each other. So even though we live in different houses, we're not seeing anybody else except each other. So we've deemed that safe for ourselves. So I have a squat rack here at the house with, a fair amount of weights, and so we've been going twice a week for now. And in addition, getting out, and the two guys want to learn a little bit more about playing softball, which I do a lot of. So I've been teaching them that, which we're kind of doing a little bit, getting up, moving, getting the heart rate moving, and then we're also lifting weights in the same day. So those are my current workout buddies. So
very cool. So the next bit of this I'm kind of interested in is, in a lot of games you get started off in the starter area, you get your little tutorial, they show you like the basic stuff, and then as the game goes on, you get new skills and you get new tutorials that come along. And I think that's one of the other things I like about this movement to gamify, working out, is that in a lot of these things that I've seen, there are, like challenges to say like, okay, you may never do this exercise, but to get this achievement or to rank up the next time, you need to do 5 power cleans. Oh, what the hell's a power clean? Well, here's a little thing that shows you the movement, like here's how you do it. And it's not the same as like a personal trainer, but for somebody who would never encounter that piece of information, they're getting it and they're trying it because there is a game component associated with it that's tying it in. And I love
something
power
instead
cleans.
of nothing.
So good. It's my favorite workout.
Yeah. What is that? Which one? Power cleans?
Power cleans, man. I love those things.
Yeah.
And
Well, you were a fast twitch athlete. You always were. You were a sprinter. So power cleans would be your game, man. And again, I think those are really awesome. And again, we're taking that step from maybe we're not doing nothing. Maybe we're doing something, but now we're doing more, because now there's a game and I'm interested and I want to do something else, which again is great. That's another step in the right direction. And I do love that for the aspect of, look what I'm doing. I'm getting better. I'm doing these things. And again, it doesn't mean it couldn't be this way, but where I come in conflict with that is there's kind of 2 ways that people work out often. Okay. There's exercise and there's training. Okay. People think those are the same. They're definitely not. So exercise gets you hot, sweaty, and tired. And you feel good and you got the endorphins. But it does not necessarily mean you will make improvement over time. Training is specific set of things you're doing so that when you start today, you're going to be better 60 days from now. And again, exercise doesn't necessarily get you that from training, or that what training does. Okay. But also, training doesn't necessarily get you hot, sweaty, and tired. So they're 2 different things. And I think right now, getting hot, sweaty, and tired are very overrepresented. And I think training is very underrepresented. And I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. Don't get me wrong. But I hear oftentimes, this is a thing I hear, well, I'm pretty strong. Okay, cool. You're pretty strong. What do you do? How did you get that way? Well, I squat once a month and then I do all this running and I do all this other things. I'm like, well, I don't want to disparage your achievement because you can squat X number of weights. That's great. But if we were to train, you would be squatting a number you never thought was possible in 60 days, because we trained for a specific result. And it doesn't have to be weights. It could be, I want to be a better sprinter. Well, what do you do? Well, I jog and then I go power clean and then I go do this. Well, how often do you do that? Just whenever I feel like it, okay, yes, you're going to get better. There's a thing in the industry called beginner gains.
Sure.
And it is, even though it sounds weird, it is true. If you are someone, let's say we took Jeff right now, he hasn't worked out in 3 years, he's a couch potato,
That's me.
and that's him. He doesn't do anything. No. So let's say he's a couch potato, and we say, all right, Jeff, today we're going to test your bench press. How much can you bench press? Okay, he bench presses 100 pounds. That's great. Perfect.
God.
Now, in order to get better at bench press, you would think, well, we need to bench press. But this guy is a complete beginner. Literally, if he went out and rode his bike every day, his bench press could get better. Because he's doing nothing, and now he's doing something. Now, his bench press is only going to get better for a short period of time. It's only going to happen for a couple of weeks. But what happens is a lot of people and unfortunately, a lot of workout programs that get sold to a lot of people take advantage of that. And they say, cool, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that this guy does enough that he thinks he's making some progress, but doesn't do too much that he actually starts making real improvements. And then he no longer needs my system anymore. So unfortunately that happens. And that's why there's kind of this line between exercise and training. And again, exercise is still good. It's not bad. I'm not saying that, but exercise will give you gains for a certain amount of time, and then you will plateau. And sometimes a plateau is okay. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But, you know, like I said, I have people that come to me and they're like, well, I'm really strong. I'm like, okay, cool. You're 6 foot tall, 200 pounds, and you squat 150 pounds. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not strong. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying the potential that is in you is nowhere near what you are displaying. And I think if we were to train instead of exercise, now all of a sudden we got to figure out what your goal is. If your goal is to be strong, let's get strong. If your goal is to be fast, let's get fast. If your goal is to have a ton of endurance, let's get a ton of endurance. But, you know, a lot of times people feel good because they did something and they made an improvement, which is great, but then it stops. You know? If someone's a couch potato and they get up and they walk, that's awesome. But if they walk for an hour every day, that's great. But at some point, I want you to walk for 2 hours, or I want you to jog for an hour instead. And then at some point, I want you to run, and then, you know, because your body will adapt to what stress you give it. You know, it's literally the cycle is stress, recovery, adaptation. So at a certain point, walking around the block isn't enough stress to cause adaptation anymore. So you have to change that. And a lot of these gamification programs, a lot of times, again, not all, a lot of times will only get you to like right here, and then they just keep teasing you. So you make like such small incremental improvements that it's enough you notice, but you're not really improving what you could. Like, oh, we're gonna get your squat up by 20 pounds in the next 6 months. Oh, wow, that's great. When in reality, you could get your squat up 20 pounds in a week and a half. Like, you know, it's a lot of it's stringing along, and it annoys me because I see it sometimes. Like, oh, here's my new system. You're going to do this. And I'm like, oh, that's not, you're pulling strings for people, you know?
Gotcha.
Sorry. That is my soapbox. I will step off of.
It's an interesting soapbox. I'm going to get back into kind of asking some more about if that is the reasoning behind why the gamification is not as interesting to you, or as effective to you as you may, even if it is interesting, in that it gives you new tools, but it doesn't necessarily train. But before we get to that, I was thinking back to us starting to work out, and we did a on-ramp to just get us ready. And I recall legs literally buckling out from underneath me. And
you fell down the stairs three times.
I was about to get to that story. I was about to get to that story.
I remember watching it. I'm like, are you okay? And then you start laughing, and I'm like, he's fine, but he can't walk. So,
so just to put this out there, you know, if you're used to working out, but you don't really do a lot of leg stuff, and you live in an apartment that has 3 sets of stairs,
3 floors.
It's a little troubling, you know, or maybe in a week's time you need to use the bathroom once or twice.
Handrails become very important.
Yeah.
You're dragging yourself up the stairs.
I remember we had a neighbor move in next door to us that same week, and like we had like 2 steps out the front of our door to go out, and I'm stepping out the door, and he's like, "Oh, I'm the new neighbor." And I go to wave to him, and I take one step, my leg just, and I just
Knee
wipe
just gives
out,
up.
just completely wipe out. That's my first introduction to my neighbors because my leg just buckles. It was. I'm sorry. I was chuckling about that the entire time while you were telling your stuff there, and I had to get it out.
Okay.
It was a rough
I
week.
do want to talk about something here, just because I noticed, not to pick on Air Laser, but this happened. I hear this a lot. That's the reason I want to say this.
Let's get
She's
the whole
talking
comments
about-
out there.
What's that?
Yeah, go ahead and do the whole comment since we're going to have people listening to audio but not
Oh,
seeing the chat.
sure. Yeah. So she says, my gym is 2 levels, and after leg day, you're gripping the railing really hard on the way down. And again, this is another thing that I see a lot, and people will do leg day once every 2 weeks. And if you do leg day once every 2 weeks, that's what your experience is going to be every leg day. Every leg day. Now, I will tell you, I've been doing this for a little while. I'm not like the end-all be-all expert, but if you squat every other day, every 3 days, you'll never be like that, ever. You will never have jello legs. I can go outside right now, squat 300 pounds, and I can walk fine tomorrow. And then 2 days later, I'll squat 305, and I can walk fine tomorrow. The reason that your body does that is because it says, holy crap, what just happened to us? Put on the brakes. We have to reassess the situation and figure it out. So if you do that, and you do it every other day, every 3 days, your body says, oh, this is a thing we do now. We're good. We're used to it. We're ready for it. So if anybody, and again, this is the biggest reason people hate leg day. Everybody does it. It's not just you. I'm not picking on you. Everybody does it. And I keep telling them, like, that's because you don't do it enough. Like, you don't have to go do something crazy and different every time. And as soon as you skip leg day, that's when next leg day is the worst.
Yep.
So just do some leg day, and it's fine. It's no big deal. Your legs are your biggest muscles in your body anyway.
We struggled with that at first, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it did get better.
I'm guilty of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm guilty of it. So
yeah, that was a rough time in my life. But it is interesting because those are things I wouldn't have done outside of the particular program we were in.
Absolutely.
Right? I could promise you this: I would have never ran a mile.
Right.
Not
you
once.
Hated all that stuff.
Hate endurance work. But you put it in a system or you put it in a game format.
Yeah.
And it's something I need to do to achieve a goal. I'm on.
Yeah.
But if it's just running for the sake of running because it's an exercise thing to do, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. And again, that's one thing that gym did really well is one, they had a really good community. Everybody knew each other. And it wasn't just like, oh, that's the guy I see at the gym. It was like we knew each other. And every day, even if we were like doing some sort of, there was some training that was worked into that. It was a lot more exercise leaning than training, but there was some training in that. But almost every day, an exercise portion of that workout was, at least on a mild level, a competition, even though it wasn't like, it wasn't like a critical competition, but you could say, oh, this guy over here is about my same level. I want to see if I can do more than him or do it a little faster than him. And it was a big motivator. And again, that gym did community right. And that is, if I ever open a gym, which I don't even know if that's something I want to do, but if I ever did open something like that, I would try extremely hard to have even half of the community environment that they had, because it was by far their biggest asset. By far. Not only as physically for the people that were working out there, but also for the business. It was by far their biggest asset, and they did it really, really well. So
yeah, it's really interesting, because we didn't know those people outside the gym at all.
Right. At least not before. Some people we got to know after.
And there was a big difference between, like you said, friendly competition among relatively similar levels of athleticism versus dude bros at the gym, right?
Yes, very different. It was very different.
And I think it's really important that there is that line that people pay attention to it, that competition doesn't mean being a douche,
Absolutely not. Absolutely
making
not.
somebody feel bad. You're not there to ruin someone's workout experience.
That's just being a poor sport. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that is another thing, like I was touching on earlier, is that the gamification process with that social media component to it, where it's like, it shares your achievement, or like, I think of those ones where it was like, I think it was the Fitbit maybe, where like groups of people could be in the same thing and they're competing on steps or whatever.
Right. How many steps they can have. Yeah.
And like little things like that, where it's just among friends, you're all pushing each other, but you're not rubbing each other's faces in the dirt.
Right.
It's
right.
It's a very cool way of doing that. And I think it's nice to see that becoming more and more emphasized as time goes on, I guess, and the technologies develop.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, I know we touched on this on conversation before a little bit, that I think at some point in the past, maybe not so much now, but at some point in the past, like being a geek and being into sports or being athletic were kind of diametrically opposed.
Right.
Like you couldn't be both. And, and if you were one, you didn't like the other, and I think today that is definitely, lines are blurring a lot more, but I think there definitely still is that stigma. If you are, let's say, on the geek side of that spectrum, there's certainly an amount of fear that, that this, if I go into that world, then now all of a sudden there's this like jerk jock bro dude that's going to try to slap me down. And also, I think if dude jerk jock bro over here was like, you know what, maybe I'll try out playing a game sometime, either the geeks over here are going to be like, no, this is our world, you stay out, and I think I don't think that's a thing that happens as much anymore.
Yeah,
but I think those ideas are still in people's minds that they are going to happen, even though in reality they may not. I think
there's social stigmas, like if you think in high school and stuff, being a nerd was not something you wanted to be, right?
Yeah, right.
I was one, but it wasn't helping,
Sure.
So like people didn't want to be labeled. So like I think that was kind of a thing. But I think the other component of that is that people don't like to be bad at something. And I think,
absolutely,
especially when you're starting, you're probably not good at it.
I'm going to tell everybody right now, if you start weightlifting, you're going to be bad at it. We all are. Don't worry. All of us.
Well, like I'm thinking about like a specific thing. Like I never played any sports as a kid, and I had never even touched a basketball until junior high, when people were on the court playing basketball and during PE, and I'm expected to try to play. And these guys are all like second generation, like, players on the court. Their dad's a coach. This is what they do every day of their life, And I'm like, God, I'm just terrible at this. I don't want to do this. I'm never going to try. Yeah. And it turns out I just didn't realize that, that they had that experience too. They just didn't have it in front of everybody else.
Right. And they had it at a young age when, I'll use this as an example. My friend Alejandro is in his 40s and has never really played a ball sport, but he's like, I want to learn how to play softball. And again, starting from the beginning, like, he's got to learn to throw. He's got to learn to catch. He's got to learn to swing a bat, which, a lot of people that play a game like that have swung a bat or have caught a ball or have thrown a ball since they could walk, and maybe they weren't great at it, but, they got that awkward, let me learn how to really do this when they were 7, 8, 9 years old, and Alejandro has no shame. He does not care. And so he doesn't care that he's no good at it, but he's like, I can be good at it. And so it's just a different thing of when you're trying to learn it when you're 40, people have an expectation, even though there's no reason to have an expectation. Yeah, and I think everybody else learned it when they were 7,
Right, and I think it goes the same for gaming, right? Like,
absolutely.
You get into gaming like you're describing. If you're not a gamer, you were saying that you didn't know 2nd edition games, so like, Thaco from D&D, like, what the hell is going on here? What am I supposed to... They're classes? Well, yeah, obviously they're classes. What the hell is a class? Like, these core ideas, we've just sat with them for decades, So, like, it's just common to us. But somebody coming new to the hobby, there's all this learning that you have to do. You have to, like, kind of get ready to go to learn how to do it. You got the acting component, you got the sheet component, you got probabilities, you got what your characters can actually do. You got all these, like, characters, you got, like, monsters, like, all this stuff you got to learn. And it's not something as easy as sometimes I think it is,
All the while, I just don't want to die. That's, and I thankfully got that experience when I was, 16 years old instead of when I was older than that. But it's the same. It's the same fear,
Oh, what a terrible character concept. It was good though.
It wasn't good, but it was my first.
But that said, like, that first game, you made some really interesting choices. You set goals for your character. That game was kind of touching back to it. That was a Dark Ages vampire game. If you weren't with us when we told that story, that was Cameron's first tabletop game experience. It was one that I was running way back in the day. Like, I think it was early high school.
In 98 or something. 98, 99, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and it was cool. Like, it was a very open world kind of experience. Because we were playing it, like, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, or like 5 times a week or something like that. I didn't have a lot of time to actually plan. So most of the game sessions were just like, what are they doing? Okay, there's an NPC like X, Y, or Z, and I started talking, and I would say something that didn't make any sense, and I'd be like, well, I've got to figure out how the priest has a daughter.
Well, let's see.
Well, it turns out he's actually a vampire. Oh! Oh, okay.
That makes more sense.
But in those days, it was really interesting to see you pop into that, because that's kind of an extra level of hard. Finding your own motivations, finding how your character fits into a world that is dependent on your character engaging it. And so that was interesting. Like, and looking back on it, I'm kind of thinking, like, how the hell did we get you onboarded into a game like this?
Well, I mean, the good thing is that even though our friend Barry told me, like, I was like, oh, I don't want to die. That's my concept. He's like, well, you're probably not gonna die. And I'm like, well, it's a game, and I'm supposed to stay alive. So, and he was like, that's fine. Just leave it. Just let it be your concept. But then by game 2 or game 3, because I just did it, like, I kind of understood what I was dealing with, and I'm like, okay, dying's a thing that can happen, but it's not a you die or you don't die. It's not 1 or 0. It's not win or lose. It's we're storytelling, we're playing. This is long form. This isn't we're gonna sit down and we're gonna play Risk until someone dies. Though that's pretty long form too. We're not gonna sit down and play. Sure. Whatever, exploding kittens until someone explodes. It's not a game that's over in 15 minutes and there's a winner and a loser. It's a different kind of game, and so it's I figured that out, but having no experience, don't die sounded like a great idea.
Yeah, believe it or not, as Animal G says, Dungeons and Dragons or Vampire the Masquerade or Dark Ages or whatever is not Russian roulette.
It is not. It is not Russian roulette. Yes, thankfully, I would have not started playing at that point.
No, and rightfully so.
Bad odds. It's bad odds for don't die.
Oh my god, that's some good stuff. So we're somehow in striking range of our end of the show here somehow.
And we're getting there.
That went by pretty quick. Is there anything that we have missed that we can squeak in there that you wanted to talk about that I didn't question or ask? And chat, if you have anything that we missed on these two kind of topics that you want to kind of ask about, get us those questions right away, because I want to get them in before we finish up.
I think to take both topics and just kind of like, if I was going to do like a final thought, when it comes to music or working out, training, exercising, do something instead of nothing. I mean, if you even consider, hey, it might be interesting to make some music, there's tons of free things you can get out there. You don't have to have any knowledge, and you could do something, and you could find out if you enjoy it. Same thing with exercise. This one I'm a little bit more, you should absolutely do something instead of nothing. And again, if getting out there and doing just something is your level, great, do that, and then maybe start actual exercise, and then maybe start training. And it can be a thing that you can continue to do forever. Like, you can lift weights into your 90s if you want. You're not going to be lifting the same you did. But that's the other thing, is like, a lot of people are big runners, and that's great. But if you're 75 years old and you're still running distance, there's a point in time when your knees are not going to be able to do that anymore. Yeah. But you can lift weights literally as old as you want. And again, your weights are going to get less and less, but lifting weights is one of the best ways to combat, the bone muscle loss, deterioration of old age. So I would just charge people to do something instead of nothing, and then once you've done something, try to make it better.
Absolutely.
Nobody cares if you don't. Nobody cares if you do. So do it for yourself.
Nice. We're going to get into our plugs here and stuff. I got 2 options for a raid after we get done with those plugs. So I'm going to leave it up to chat to kind of give me kind of a little direction which way they want to go. We have a Dungeons and Dragons channel, and then we have an art channel. So why don't you go ahead and put in the comments which way you're leaning, and then Cam and I will start to do our outros here a little bit.
Sounds good.
So we'll kind of get through kind of the order of the week, I guess. So for our art channel, we're going to get back into our regular scheduled swing of things. Last week, obviously, we took some time away to do, to pay attention to what's going on in the world and to not necessarily be a distraction from some of the activities that are going on. So we were off for most of the week. But this week, we are going to try to be back on our regular schedule. And we're hoping to take care of your guys' needs for a little bit of relief from some stress. So we start that off in the week with Monday nights here on the Wisdom Check, where you could join us to talk about, things that tangentially relate to gaming, or sometimes nothing that has to do with gaming, but is interest to geeks and people that are in there. We have lots of guests. If you missed some of our past episodes, we have all of them up on YouTube. We also have them, if you're listening online, you know this, on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, the whole 9 yards. So just look for us on there. And I'm trying to remember who our next week's guest is, but I can't click on it because my cameras will get all screwed up. Cam, can you take a look at the schedule for me there? See who next week is?
One moment, please.
I know Dustin wasn't here tonight, and I'm glad that Cam was able to fill in. It was great talking to you. I do miss having Dustin along with the crowd. It'd be nice if all 3 of us could be on here sometime.
Hey,
we'll kind of get that going.
You never know.
And hopefully he's having a decent time at work. I know he's been kind of chiming in here from the chat, so there's that. Looks like while he's looking that up, we'll kind of move on to Tuesday, which looks like tomorrow we're going to be packed with some content because in addition to Cam's normal show, which he's going to describe here in a minute, that runs on Tuesdays, looks like Levi, who has the most chaotic schedule of all time, aka no schedule at all. You will never know when it is unless you are part of the Discord, which has been linked in the chat there, is in the section below in the description if you're on YouTube. It's also in the description of the episodes if you are on iTunes or whatever. And if you're on that Discord, you will be able to know when he says he's going to stream. And it turns out tomorrow between 5 and 7 p.m. Central Time, you'll be able to catch Levi doing DM to Art, where he is creating artwork for our games. Now, he has just recently finished, as far as I know, all of our portraits for our characters, and he's even put them all together. So I'm really curious what he's going to be working on tomorrow. But you'll have to tune in, unless he kind of teases us in the chat here. But that will be right before Cam's show. So you want to check that out. Levi does an awesome job. He does all of his original art. He also creates in multiple layers. So like he's got a hand drawn. He's got, he inks it, and then he brings it into Photoshop and starts really kind of pulling stuff together. And in a similar vein to what Cam was about to describe, Levi is a bit of a teacher in this show, whereas he is definitely an art teacher in real life. And it's pretty cool. You get to learn some of the techniques and the styles that kind of come along with that. So it's a great show. You should definitely check it out. And after you finish watching that, Cam will be bringing on his show,
Yes.
Knowledge.
Before I talk about that, next week, June 15th, for Wisdom Check, Velik, SGN, Masks and Mimicry. Is gonna be the guest next week.
Excellent.
So,
Very cool.
that's who's going to be there next week for that. So, Bardic Knowledge tomorrow night, every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central Time. Like I was talking about at the beginning of the show, it's all about music. I try to implement some sort of kind of educational, information in there, as well as making some music and all that, doing music for as it relates to kind of our role-playing games and can be used in the role-playing games or somehow tangentially related to the games that we play. So I'll be doing that tomorrow night and every Thursday, 8 p.m. So about an hour after DM Levi finishes up.
Yeah, that'll be great. That's gonna be a jam-packed day,
There is.
for sure. So there is that. Definitely tune into that. Again, both of those shows, DM to Art and Bardic Knowledge, can be found on our YouTube channel. So if you're missing out on that, take a look in the descriptions or in the chat, because those links are available to you. And make sure you subscribe to the channel. When we hit 200 subscribers on the channel, we're going to be doing a giveaway. We have a book to give out, and it's going to be awesome. So then Wednesday night, as if we didn't have enough content around these folks, we have a return back to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So we'll be coming back. These guys are going to continue their struggle bus through the module Fall of Plaguestone. And that's the game I run. These guys all play some real wacky characters with some a lot of personality and some wacky points. Not points, I just read the word points because Animal G is referring to the fact that we are allowed to utilize some special game points to influence the game. And Animal G likes to take advantage of that quite a bit. The ways you can interact with that, you can give hero points, which give either the players or myself as a DM rerolls. You can also affect Levi's spellcasting and apply wild effects. And there are two different charts. One of them is kind of milder effects. And then there's the Big Daddy chart that has some real doozies that I've really struggled to implement without destroying the game. So if you want to have a chance to completely throw us off our game, that's the game to do it in. And we welcome you to that. That'll be 10 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday night. We play for a few hours, and we are doing the Fall of Plaguestone. That's the module we're playing through on that one. So there's that. And then we haven't done this in a while. I think it's been about a month since we played, but we are looking to do a game night again on Thursday night. We'll square up the time for that sometime before Thursday. But
check the Discord.
Yeah, Discord's the way to go. And I believe we're going to probably play 7 Days to Die. We're starting a new thing up. We're probably not going to show everything that occurs. We're going to be playing it off camera, just kind of like get our fun in as we're just kind of chilling and not entertaining you folks. And then on Thursday we turn on the cameras and we make sure you get to see what we're up to. And it's probably going to be nonsense. It's going to be great.
Most likely nonsense.
We'll probably do voices again because it's fun. And then Saturday nights. When is the next Everstorm game? Is it this Saturday?
This week.
It is this week. Holy shit.
Yep.
So this is going to be another jam-packed weekend. So this Saturday at, again, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, we will be playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons that Levi runs called the Everstorm. And it is a homebrew campaign. We've been playing it forever. It is really good. We got a lot of stuff going on, a lot of really interesting plot stuff popping out lately. We got a lot of things to consider. And the Skeezer plot, the Kodo plot. We got a lot of choices right now and a lot of directions we could be going. So we just got done with some real serious info dumps and a lot of question marks still remain. And I'm looking forward to it. So we'll be playing that on Saturday. And then if Dustin's still here, he can confirm to me, I need to find out from him anyway, that we are going to be starting a Zweihander game that he's going to be running. And it's going to be called Horror on Huttenberg, I believe. And we have a great cast for that. We have the names all listed up in the Discord. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this Sunday we're doing character creation. And in Zweihander, it's very random. So I have no idea what character I'm going to get because you roll everything. You roll your gender, you roll your race, you roll your body type, if you're thick, thin, young, old, all that stuff, your class, everything. It's going to be, according to him, Sunday at 5 p.m. So, yeah, tune in and come on and see what happens. I have a feeling I'm going to get a really bizarre character, and it's going to be hilarious. I'm personally a little partial. I'm hoping I get to be a prostitute. It'll be hilarious. That is an actual class, apparently. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
An effective class, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. And then there's probably all kinds of other things out there. I don't know. I'm probably forgetting something. I don't know what it is I'm forgetting. But chat, did you guys come to a decision? I don't know what the actual art is right now. I do know the last time I tuned in. Yeah, I have a channel that we've gone to before, Ellie Therese. The last time I checked it out was some really interesting, I think it was watercolor kind of psychedelic looking stuff. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, she's doing ink and paint tonight, it looks like.
Okay, that would be cool. So we got that option, or we've been getting a lot of love from Scabby Rooster recently, and they're running some Dungeons & Dragons right now. So I'd like to kind of hit one of those two since they've been helping us out a little bit here and there. So of those two, do I have any chat people kind of pushing it one way or the other? Go ahead and put something in the chat for me. And while I wait for you to do that, I want to say thank you so very much once again, Cam, for joining me tonight. This would have been a very difficult show to run.
I'm telling you, you could have just talked to yourself. It would have been great.
I mean, I know I could have. I could have been like, what you doing over there, you sexy motherfucker? And then
look at you. Look how good you look. No problem. Anytime. It was fun.
I appreciate it. It was good. So yeah, there's that. I appreciate that. And chat, I appreciate you as always coming to join us. If you're new to the channel, thank you for popping in. Hope you enjoyed. And we're going to, I think if nobody else is saying anything, I'm leaning towards artwork tonight. I'd like to kind of go pop over there. So I am thinking we're going to go visit Ellie Therese. So be sure that you let her know that you came from us and hopefully enjoy. So I'm going to go ahead and get that queued up. And we'll see you next week or tomorrow. If
Thanks
you're
for
going
coming,
to the
everybody.
shows.
We appreciate it.
Awesome. So let's see how long this thing takes to load the bus.
All right,
It's my favorite part. I stare at the screen, and it's always super awkward. There we go.
It's all right. We're going. We're getting there. It's counting up. 14.
All right, folks.
Two
See
more.
you on the flip side. Have a great night.
Yes.